Hi everyone, my name is Fabian Rodriguez and this is Bitcoin Book Club on Hodlcast. This week's reading is a bit different from what we normally do. Instead of reading a book, we decided to venture into essays, and we went over the Dark Enlightenment essays by Nick Land. These essays talk about freedom and democracy, incompatibility. It also talks about left-wing and right-wing politics, political correctness, and race. We do the best that we can from the knowledge that we have to talk about these subjects and to talk about these topics. But it was a very difficult read, both in the way it was written and the material itself. So enjoy this discussion and conversation about Nick Land's The Dark Enlightenment. I thought the essays were, it was really good. It was good to hear, or not, maybe good's not the word, but it was a challenging read, and it has me thinking a lot, right? And I think that makes it kind of special to me. It's like, all right, I haven't had anything challenge my beliefs or my assumptions in a long time. And this did just that. So what about you? What do you guys think?
Yeah, it's just that, Joseph, we just we did this essay series called The Dark Enlightenment by Nick Land, and it's kind of how would you describe it, Fabian?
Very.
What's the official? Yeah, it's kind of like this
socially.
It's like a I don't want to say libertarian, but that word's got to be in there somewhere.
It's kind of like it's like this new line of thinking that's coming out of like.
Would you consider it like an outside view of everything that's happening in America?
Let me just see what the official.
Seem totally biased anyway.
Do you think it's an outside view though? I mean, it's pretty.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's in the trenches.
Yeah, it's in the trenches, right? It's like, I guess from the, it's like looking at our social constructs in the US and really changing not who the good guys or bad guys are, but really like we assume the government is like the good guy, and it's really like drinking our own poison.
Yeah.
That's a good description. It's I thought a lot of the first half of it, I thought a lot of it was very interesting, like kind of the political economic stuff and the stuff about libertarianism as well. I thought was very interesting. And I also think, linking back to Bitcoin, that maybe Bitcoin changes some of the dynamics there. The second half, like a lot of it was definitely, as Stephanie said, stimulating. But some of it was kind of, difficult to read, kind of, you know what I mean?
I just wanted it to end yesterday. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so tired of this.
I mean,
So, do you want to just jump into it then?
Yeah, let's. I was just about to say, let's just jump right into it. So, hey, Stephanie, how you feeling?
Feeling all right, hanging in there. I'll definitely, I might be a little off and on today, but
all right.
I'll be here for part four.
Can you guys see it?
Yeah. Well, a blank white screen anyway.
Okay. How about now?
No.
How about now? All right. Actually, I need to record this timestamp. Jack, you got a pen and pencil near you? Cut this part out. Let me see if I could hold on. All right. I got like a lot of windows open and I got it on the other monitor. So
If you actually can you restart the recording and then start it from now again? Would that work?
yeah, I can do that.
Like,
No,
save
let's just let it go. I don't see,
All right. Okay.
you know, we just cut it to. Hold on, guys. Do you guys see
It's
anything?
just where.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can see it now. We can see it. Emilio, what do you think of the book or the essays?
Very confusing. not an easy read. You know,
Yeah. No, it wasn't.
I don't even know how we're going to go about discussing this stuff because some of it was just so out there, you know. So anyway, let's see. And some of it, I don't even know if I fully understood what
Me
you were
too.
saying.
You're not alone.
Yeah, you're not
So-
alone, as Kurt said.
Can you guys see this?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, so part one. So I guess Nick is he's a neo reactionary, and a lot of these writings came from, what was the guy's pen name?
Moldbug.
Moldbug.
Yeah, Molbug, something.
Mencius Moldbug, I
Yeah.
think.
Okay, so I guess the big thing that struck me was the first thing he said was freedom and democracy are incompatible, right? And we live in a world where we equate the two as the same. I thought that was, kind of a punch to the gut first. I was like, what are you talking about? And then kind of like democracy and progressive democracy, they're expansions of the state, and kind of, okay, I can kind of get that part where it's like you're expanding the state, expanding the government, it's going to infringe more and more on your freedoms, right? It's kind of where I got with that. And I guess that was a little lukewarm way of getting into things. What do you guys think about freedom and democracy?
Yeah.
I agreed with that. And it was kind of eye-opening and kind of a reminder that our founding fathers were skeptical of democracy. And if you go back to the Constitution, they don't mention democracy. They only mention a republic and liberty. So that was kind of like, that's connecting for me.
What's a republic exactly?
I don't know.
I'll Google it.
I'll Google it too. Hold on.
Power held by the representatives, elected representatives.
So that's a democracy, isn't it?
That's what I thought. So let's Google democracy. I didn't get the time to do all of this Googling after the reading.
It can be a mix. So attained through democracy, or a mix of democracy with oligarchy or autocracy. So it can be a mix, an extreme.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose that, look, the first statement, it does make sense. Like, well, I don't know about incompatible, but like freedom, democracy doesn't necessarily mean freedom. Like, as they made, I guess Thomas Jefferson made the point that once 51% of people have the power, they can then like institute tyranny into the nation, which that's kind of, I don't think that's controversial to say. And like the whole idea was then that the Constitution, we're just talking about the US, but most Western countries, was put in place so that what happened in the 1930s could never happen again. But then I think kind of the argument he's making for the first half, or in partial, is saying that like the Constitution only has value once the people themselves value it and understand it, and then once it kind of becomes eroded then over time, because like the Constitution, it's not like this it's not like Bitcoin where it can't be changed. It can be changed, and as this democracy corrupts or slowly gets worse, it inevitably will be changed. I think anyway, I kind of went through the first half quite fast, but I think that's a small bit of what he was saying with regards to that anyway.
I guess.
Yeah, so
Adam, you.
no, go ahead. I didn't have anything.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that, so some of what he says in this first section has a little bit of intuitive appeal, right? I mean, to Jack's point, democracy are just trying to secure 51% of the vote, right? And he quotes people from, the founding fathers. I think there's a quote by Winston Churchill, just talk to, what was that? I don't remember the quote, but just talk to an average person on the street and you'll understand what the problem with democracy is, So the premise seems to be that most people are, actually the premise is democracy treats everybody as equals. And most, people, and that shouldn't be the case. People are not equal. They have different levels of understanding of various things. And if you, so I get that, so like this is what I was saying last time is that, I'm not an economist, my views on the economy can't be the same as a very sophisticated economist's view on the economy. So yes, fine. But then what's the alternative, right? I don't know if, so it's and I think he talks about it in the essay as well, it's the least bad system possible. I don't recollect him proposing an alternative. He might have.
Yeah. I was looking at the conclusion of the last section too, and I didn't see a proposition or anything.
Sorry, Fabian.
No, go ahead. That was all I was going to say.
Well, I was just going to say, I only read it once, but I thought that a lot of general feel. Now I'd have to read it a few more times to start it properly. I'm not going to read it a few more times, but I'd have to. But I thought a lot of the first part of the first half, a lot of people would agree with a lot of the assertions he made, and that maybe going deeper into the race stuff that he was saying, it was kind of packaged like a Trojan horse to kind of get the race ideas through. Or like, I don't think a lot of the first half of the stuff was that controversial, and it kind of prepared you for the second half. And I was thinking a lot of through the second half, I don't know, do I agree with a lot of this, or does it even really make sense? We can go through that next week.
Yeah, so I get what you're saying, but I feel like it was the bridge to get to that, right? Because so talking about so when he was talking about like equality versus liberty or voice versus exit, right? I'm seeing that in like a lot of Bitcoin, like a lot of Bitcoiners is like, I don't even want to play this game anymore. I'm just gonna get Bitcoin. And later on, it's like he was mentioning, where is it? He was where was I seeing this? Sorry, guys. So like I'm using Bitcoin. I don't want to be a part of this, but also I was seeing like the type of people that buy guns, save ammo, and get rations, right? And like I come across that on Bitcoin Twitter a lot, like, or on Twitter Spaces, like I'm coming across these libertarian types, and it was identifying some of the reasons why, like some of the how the view of democracy in our country, the politics in our country, why they're taking on that view is if you see it in this light. Am I making sense?
Yeah. I kind of it's a wide subject, but I empathize with a lot of like I suppose not so much anymore, but I used to be very, say, libertarian or whatever, and I kind of came to the same acknowledgement that he came to, that it doesn't really work, or that the argument he was making. And then maybe, well, one thing is that maybe with Bitcoin and things like that, that's changed now. Maybe it can work due to the kind of game theoretic hypothesis of like the sovereign individual book, that kind of thing. But I kind of just went away. I don't really think of boxing and politics, and maybe it is right, I don't know. But what am I saying? I'm saying yeah, I kind of just don't really think about the politics stuff anymore, and I can understand those guys on Twitter or whatever saying like, you know, we're just gonna buy the guns and get Bitcoin and the whole thing's gonna fix itself due to Bitcoin or whatever. I don't know, is that correct? But I can empathize with them, like what they're saying.
I think you put it well. Like I can get that sentiment now reading this from this perspective. Yeah. Then he went through like politicians in power. I thought that was kind of interesting, right? I mean, I think we all knew that, but it's like they're only there for whatever amount of time. They got to get what they're trying to steal and grab what they can in that moment of time that they have, and plunder rapidly, right? Was a really good thing that interesting thing that he said. And also, nothing can be left for future opposition that will hurt them or destroy what must not be stolen. And it really is like two parties just trying to, it's vicious, right? And how these politicians and people in power are just trying to, appease people short term. And I was thinking like, just tell people, give people what they want, tell people what they want. Doesn't matter how we pay for it. We're not looking at the long-term perspective. It's just appeasing short-term interest right now.
There's a quote somewhere, I don't know if he said this or someone, he was quoting someone, but where he mentioned like making oneself heard means more politics. And I think that I can get the frustration behind that, of like this inciting, like politics is inciting the people and vice versa, and it becomes like a feedback loop,
And then kind of just getting into definitions, what he was using universalism is, progressivism, multiculturalism, libertarian. So everything a lot of the leaning on at least social media, right? Where it's no, I take that back. What am I trying to say? Right, progressivism is seen as good, as moving forward. It's younger, what younger people are thinking. I don't know.
Identify with for younger people, like they're making a difference.
And then the Cathedral. What was the Cathedral?
It's basically the kind of establishment, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah. That's
Media and academics and the deep state, that whole thing is the Cathedral, I think.
Did y'all watch the Mold Bug? I don't know who posted it. Mold Bug with Tucker Carlson.
I watched half of it.
Me too. That guy, he's very interesting, but I feel like he went more into detail on the Cathedral part, at least, or how government works or how he sees it and how, I don't know, but I thought it was interesting. It kind of shed light to the first part of this, but I couldn't listen to the rest. I got brain tired.
And that kind of like, because I hear that argument, right, is like the government is ran by universities, right? And like I'm like, or like universities have a big say into what is the accepted thinking in society. do you guys know where I'm coming from when I say that? Like, that's kind of
Yeah.
what I was understanding when he was using cathedral is like, oh, this is what they mean, and this is how it's functioning, how government pays the universities to do some thinking, which is then just taught and like is taken as the standard. And that kind of reminds me of Austrian economics then too, of like how that was neglected, and how it was Keynesian, and now a lot of our economic schools or a lot of economic theories based on Keynesian models where, Bitcoiners and other people are thinking more of how it should really be Austrian view that's more in line with reality, and how monetary policy and that should be. I'm thinking out loud, guys.
Yeah, no, I get you. Yeah, a lot of the stuff he said about like kind of price signals and all that just being destroyed in current society for our agenda that I suppose you could. All of this stuff is really difficult to kind of just touch on, kind of generalize what he's saying. But like what he was saying about the price signals being took out of society, like, and then all the other, it's kind of like the Bitcoin thing, like all the other effects that are happening because of this. There's no real way of knowing if anything's working because price signals are took out.
Right.
That was very interesting what he said there, I thought anyway. Yeah.
Joseph, you thinking about anything? You got any questions for us? What's going on in your mind? Hey, it feels like we're being so ambiguous, we're being so mysterious about what's in the box.
I didn't read the whole essay because I had no time this week. I'm so sorry, but I would add to the democracy and freedom part that when sound money is not the norm in society, it can lead to a defect form of democracy that can take away freedom from individuals.
Yeah,
Definitely.
So that's it.
Yeah.
Just what he said about the institution, like the kind of democracy, just like my understanding was what he was saying was like under like say when democracy started out strong, even though it wasn't even democracy with the founding fathers of America, say that due to people kind of, I don't know, becoming more, I don't know, did he say less educated, or like maybe that's more my thinking, but people not caring about things that are important to make society work, that over time it just erodes out through like, what am I saying? Like democracy over time would actually trend towards its failure because of its very nature. That like, say if people in like in the 1930s in World War II, when all the constitutions, liberal democracy constitutions were brought in to try to make it impossible that this could never happen again. Now it's like, it's a separate argument to say whether it's actually happening at the moment or not, but it seems like inevitable that it's going to happen, to me anyway, like in the next 100 years, because the simple fact that people don't care about those constitutions anymore. So it's like they're going to be destroyed, and then we're going to be repeating history all over again. And maybe the argument, I don't know, this is kind of maybe going totally off his argument, but maybe he's saying that under a different system, like I'm not even quite sure what he's advocating for at the end of it, but under a different system that wasn't democratic, something like this wouldn't happen, and it wouldn't have to trend in that direction. I don't know, does that make sense? That's kind of...
It does, and that's sort of the undercurrent of everything he says in the piece, right? And for the last 400, 500 years, I think he says things, if you look at it as a vector, it's been going in a particular direction, right? Everything's, equality is becoming the norm. Most societies are heading towards democracy. And what I have a hard time reconciling is that, according to him, that's taking us to shit, basically. But that's not what we observe, right? I mean, most people would agree that everybody's lives has progressively become better over the last, whatever, few centuries.
Yeah.
But, and things are, at the moment, things are definitely not working as they should. In the United States, for example, increasing wealth inequality, nobody is happy with anything. But is that a problem with the corruption in the current system, or is that, there can be no other outcome? You get what I'm saying? Is that just something that needs to be fixed in the current way of doing things, or, voice or exit, basically, just exit from the current system? Sorry.
No, I get what you're saying. I think it's not because of the current system, it's because of the interference with the current system. I don't know what Saifuddin was talking about, basically. Like, if the government would stop interfering in every little thing, maybe it wouldn't have gotten this bad, or, on this path to destruction.
Yeah.
I think it's a form of cronyism.
Yeah.
Cronyism. Very powerful individuals using the government to eliminate competition. So it creates more regulation for small businesses to come up and compete. So I think that's the root of the problem there. Maybe, I don't know.
No, definitely.
I think, Camille, what he was saying again, I'd have to read again, but I think what he was saying was that there's two things in large part. The Democrats say democracy and all that. He was trying to make the argument anyway that democracy hasn't actually, to say with rising living standards and all that, he's saying that in large part that isn't actually due to democracy. It's due to talk about learning what we're doing now. This is all enabled technology.
Yeah, tech progress.
Right.
All that. Jack, that's interesting.
He said that,
I don't know is it correct, but
he said it was a lagging, democracy was a lagging, not indicator, it was a lagging, it was just lagging behind in industry and innovation. So it wasn't that, he said that industry and innovation came up with these good things, and then democracy kind of cut the line and said, hey, this is what we did, but it wasn't that way. Democracy was falling behind it, right? So,
and he was actually saying that democracy was actually trying to stop it in a lot of circumstances. It was trying to, if you think now, say with all the crypto stuff, Bitcoin and all that, the government is going to try and stop it once they realize the threat it is to them, and that ultimately isn't positive. It's as he says, it's for them to maintain the status quo, or what he calls the cathedral. Now, it's probably not for society's greater good in the long run, but it's kind of the establishment has to maintain its, he was talking about, kick the can down the road as well. That's built into the system, and because that's built in, it has to kind of keep getting worse, because the system always will put its survival above everything else.
Yep.
I think that's kind of what he's saying. Just one more thing. What he said as well about Singapore and stuff, I've always found that thought about that. Singapore is very I'm just interested to hear what you guys think. That isn't I've been to Singapore once before as just passing through, and when you got off the plane, they had a huge sign saying if you're caught smuggling anything, you'll be shot.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing when I read that part about, he mentions Dubai too, I think. I forget where else. I have never been to any of those places that he mentioned, so I'm not going to come at it from any, like, I don't know, but especially as a woman, like I read that paragraph and I was like, I don't know. I just don't know if I would feel that. Like I just didn't really get where he was coming from.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, it's just that that's what I was thinking. Like, and the other thing is in those places, like, well, it may be good now because there is no democracy, or like you truly are kind of fucked if things go bad there because you can't change it without revolution. Like, but yeah, and I thought that was interesting because it isn't talked about like in the Western world really, like Singapore and Dubai, even China is not at all like us, you know? Well, supposedly anyway.
It's not. And so do you think it matters, you know? So on paper, at least, you know, in the West, in Europe and America to an extent, there's all this freedom, you can do whatever you want. But does day-to-day life, as long as you're a prosperous country, does day-to-day life really change that much? In that a guy living in Singapore, you know,
Mm, yeah.
is he any less happy with his life than the person living in the US? Just
I
because
suppose
in America you can own a gun and you can do this and you can do that, right?
there's many means to an end, I suppose. Yeah,
I'm
I don't.
that reminds me of risk, where we're in an environment where we, right? I'm thinking of capitalism, and you get rewarded by the risk you take, right? And thinking about, you know, the US, where it's free, right? But it's really you're able to take on risk in forms of what you want to do with your life, or starting a company or starting a business, where the countries we just talked about, there is no risk there, right? It's like you are pretty set with where you are. There's not much. Yeah, you can move up and down the ladder, but it's pretty set in stone where you're at. Where in the US, the general thing is like, you know, you could make it because you could take
Yeah.
on all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
But then the other, you could say though that like if you take a place like Sweden, there isn't a whole lot of innovation. Like nearly all the innovation in the world does come out of America, and you could say it's for that. And the argument he's making then is that it's the innovation that's driving standards of living and all that around the world. So like again, what we're doing now, all of this came from the US. Like just to tech enabled, all that kind of thing. So the incentives there are going out to other countries that don't have those same incentive structures due to globalism, whatever. That's kind of, I think that's what he's saying anyway.
Did we want to talk about the ostracized group real quick to get into part 3, or just get into part 3?
I can't remember what that was, to be honest.
I think he was just saying that there's a group of people that they're marginalized, ignored, and silenced through social ostracism. So I guess we could kind of call this group the Republicans, right? I mean, that's kind of what it's. That, like, in my mind, I'm thinking of Republicans when we're thinking of like silence through social ostracism. Maybe I'm wrong in thinking that, but there's this group of people on the right that we just kind of ignore, throw under the bus. And these are the guys that are like in the basement, stocking up dry food, getting ammunition, getting gold coins, right? And that was the picture that I painted in my mind when he was talking about this. And I don't know why I'm clinging on to that, guys. What's wrong with me? But
I don't know. This was probably a tricky part for me. I didn't go back and visit.
Yeah, I think you're correct in what he's saying. He's like the idea that those kinds of people are so disillusioned with the system that they don't bother playing any part in the democracy.
But would that
Um,
be Republicans or libertarians?
Well, it's
Libertarians, not
definitely
Republicans,
probably
sorry.
libertarian.
Yeah. Fragments of that side.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, this is my part, and it's kind of lame because I did it this morning, but I just put down stuff that I found interesting from part 3. I have never heard of a zeitgeist before, but it
The
just
movie or the term?
both.
Has anyone ever seen the
But-
movie Zeitgeist?
I've never heard of it.
No. Stephanie,
Really?
you're smiling. Have you seen it?
I know of it. I haven't, like, I know what movie you're talking about. Also, I just use this word all the time. It's one of those words I feel
Really?
like I use it too much.
Oh my gosh, it was so new for me.
No, it's kind of it's a quirky one.
Can you explain
Yeah.
it then? Can you explain it? What it means? Because actually, I don't really know what it means.
Do you, Kelly, or?
Well, I just found that definition this morning, but if you have a better way of saying it.
No,
go for
that's
it.
way better. Really, like, I just think of it as like the times, like the general sentiment of a time period is kind of how I
Yeah.
think about it.
Yeah, so I put for examples in the 1960s, free love, progressive thinking. And then I Googled what the zeitgeist is for now, and I thought it was funny because it said modern monetary theory. I just clicked a link on Google and found that interesting. But I mean, that is kind of the theme of this time, at least in the Bitcoin world. You know, we're all being educated on the way the government is printing money, dealing with the economy. It's kind of fitting, I guess. But also due to like the essay that we read, it is progressive universalism, that type of stuff. And I found the quote interesting: progress for the tick is not progress for the dog, because we kind of see that in different areas of today anyways. But anyway, I don't know if anybody else has thoughts on that. But then I thought the tolerance section was also interesting and equally confusing. This is back on the last slide. Part 4, I didn't really get into. But as I was reading it, I mean, this is going to come up later in the essay too, but perfect tolerance and absolute intolerance have become, not becoming, logically indistinguishable. I don't know if you guys have any examples of something like this, but I remember being in Denver and seeing this girl wearing a sweatshirt saying, "I see color." And I was just really confused because I was like, is that racist or is it not anymore? And she was bickering with someone in a parking lot over whether or not it was. And I just decided I'm going to mind my business. But it's like, it just goes with the theme. I don't know what's right anymore, because what's right today might have been really messed up yesterday or vice versa. And so rather just keep my mouth shut, especially being white, you know, as he goes into that. It's a danger zone. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's a danger zone, that's for sure.
And I think a big part of that was being white or your race. The fact that you are put into that danger zone is something that needs to be talked about, right? That is there's something there that's not right in terms of how there was a lot of that part in the race, and I don't,
Yeah.
there was
I know,
like
I don't want
a
to
lot
ruin it.
there, right?
Yeah. It was I just found it interesting because I feel that way about a lot of the things he was saying. I'm just like, yeah, but I've never said that before. I can't really. But, and then at the bottom there, I have hate trends, because that really is, whatever the media decides is a hate trend is what everyone hops on board with and just scream till we're blue in the face. I don't know. I'm just like, you can't do anything right anymore.
Right. And see, that's the problem. A lot of the stuff that he talks about in the piece, right, is stuff
Yeah.
everybody entertains those thoughts at some point,
Yeah.
But doesn't vocalize it. Now, so does that mean everybody's being hypocritical? Because weird shit goes on in your head, right? Everything doesn't have to be vocalized all the time. I don't know. It's just very complicated and difficult to work through.
I agree. But then I saw, sorry, the last part, I want to know if you guys remember this, but the quote, it was in bold, whatever is subsidized is promoted. And I instantly went to what Saifedean was talking about in the Bitcoin standard, but I wasn't sure if I couldn't find it this morning, and I wasn't sure if I was thinking of it correctly. But basically, if the government has to subsidize it, it's because there's no demand for it and it should just fail. Why does the government, I don't know, put all this time and energy to things? And then I Googled what is subsidized just to see what all would come up. And it's all like environmental stuff, ESG type things. And I was just like, that's really interesting now that the SEC is pushing ESG investing and stuff like that. But that's kind of off the rail where the rest of I was on the slide, but it was just some thoughts.
He just talks about so many things in this piece, right? And the language he uses is it's not very accessible. You're literally reading one word at a time as opposed to absorbing the whole sentence. So
it's challenged my vocabulary, first of all, more than anything.
Yeah.
The second read through, it for me was like watching a really interesting movie. You just want to see how the ending is. And then when you watch it again, then you can get the nuances of like, oh, I could see the picture frame in the room now of who she killed later on. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
the details started making sense once I knew kind of what was going on. So
yeah.
But basically, if you have to summarize the whole thing in say 4 bullets, right? What is he saying? He's basically saying equality is not something you should aspire to, right? Democracy doesn't work.
And
but not even equality.
It's
not
time
even,
to move on.
Sorry?
In the very last sentence, it's time to move on.
Yeah, time to move on. Equality doesn't exist, and hence you shouldn't aspire to it. And it's time to move on. And how do you move on? I think he says a country should be run like a company, right? A country is run by a CEO. No, a country is a company with a CEO that owns the country. What the hell was he saying? I don't even remember too well. But it has a CEO and they own the country, and the CEO is responsible to shareholders. But he doesn't go into who the shareholders are. How does the CEO get determined? It sounds very nice and glib, but how does all this work?
A quote I always hear about when people are like, oh, he's a businessman, but businessmen don't make good politicians. It's like, you can't fire poor people, right? Like, that's the quote I always think of when I think of like CEOs. Not I don't know how to fit it in there. That's just something that I think about is like, you can't,
Yeah.
Anyway.
So, and I sort of double clicked into a few of the links in his thing, and there was this thing with the other guy that we were talking about. What's his name? Moldbug. Yeah. And he basically, in one of his writings elsewhere, he says, get Elon Musk to run the country. Tell him this is his job. His job is to ensure everybody's, looked after, and just set some objectives for him, and he'll do it. You don't even have to think about it, and just have some 4 or 5 objective measures and measure him on it. And that's the end of the story.
As a
Right.
Tesla shareholder, it's not a bad idea.
And this thought has. So Joseph, you're from Lebanon, is it?
Yes.
So, I read this when that blast happened in Lebanon at the port last year,
Mhm.
and Macron had gone to visit Lebanon, right?
Yes.
And I read newspaper reports that there were crowds, telling Macron to, France, you come and rule us because our government is absolutely inept.
Yes,
Now,
there were some crowds like that. Yes.
but was that a widespread sort of thing that happened or no? It was just a
I
small.
can't say that because the population of Lebanon is it's not like one people. It's many different kind of people, and in any issue in the world, the population of Lebanon is split in two. It's like that. So each part of the country takes an extreme. Telling Macron to come to and rule Lebanon is an extreme also. So
yeah, it is. But
I wouldn't say it's a majority or a widespread belief or what's the word here, demand, but it was there. Yes.
Okay, but you see the point I'm trying to make, right? It challenges the whole notion of how we think of a nation state. So if you're in America, the Zeitgeist is that, America should be run by an American, that 51% of Americans vote for, So I think what these guys in that essay are saying is that shouldn't be the case. Just get the most capable person to run the country, and then why be bound by whether the person is American, born in the country, not born in the country?
Yeah, I see.
So that's what I was trying to get at. I understand what you're saying. Lebanon is not a homogeneous country. There's lots of different kinds of people. So it might mean the views of one particular set. But yeah, I think that's the point he's making, that start your country and there's no concept of are you from this country originally? We just get the best people to run it. But how do you choose that best person? Who the hell knows?
Yeah. It just at the end, like honestly though, like not to sound like over, I don't know, cliche is the wrong word, but like in the second, I think it's in your part, Mio, he's saying like about what needs to happen to fix a lot of the problems. Like partially is like restoration of hard money and dismantling of the state's like monopoly on money and like fiscal policy with like no consequences other than like just destroying like the slow bleed of society over time. I honestly think that Bitcoin is actually going to fix a lot of that, because like you won't be able to, unless there's new mechanisms put in where they try and like do the same concept as a gold standard and issue then new tokens with Bitcoin behind it, they can kind of corrupt or like bastardize or whatever. I think that Bitcoin does have the potential to address some of the economic problems and maybe force a change or reset on the economic side of things, perhaps. And especially like it could at least give scope to new nations to rise, like in El Salvador or whatever. Like they could become like the new Silicon Valley or whatever, and be going there. And maybe America isn't our leader anymore for that kind of a thing. Yeah, obviously he has no idea or awareness whatsoever about Bitcoin, but I think there is, and obviously there's definitely a kind of corniness or whatever in the Bitcoin community saying that it fixes absolutely everything, and obviously it doesn't fix a lot of things. But I think it could have a somewhat big role to play in regards to what he's saying in this essay.
It does, and I agree with that. And I think why Bitcoin is such a success story is what you want the network to achieve is sort of coded, right? You cannot change it. It's sort of almost impervious to politics, you know? Just because somebody agrees or doesn't agree, it's not subject to people's whims and fancies, right? So coins get released at the rate that is predetermined. No matter what you do, it's not, or change it would require a Herculean amount of effort, right? So something like that, if it could be coded in the way people are governed, that you just have these objectives which are subject to certain constraints, and you can't do politics with it. You can't appease one group and at the detriment of the other group. Those rules are sort of coded in the system, and you are governed by a very rigid set of, rigid is not the right word, but you get what I'm saying, right?
Protocols.
You're governed by these principles which cannot be compromised.
It sounds like a DAO.
It sounds like, yeah.
Right? Like, and what's to say, in the future, government wouldn't just be on a blockchain, right?
Make it easier.
It would, yeah, right? And that's just...
Honestly, if this book, or not this book, but these essays tie into a lot of the kind of thing they say in the sovereign individual, but it's very it's the sovereign individual has a different outlook and different conclusions, but they kind of fit together. Is worth looking at in the future.
Stephanie, do you wanna?
Yeah, I'm here. So I'm gonna just really pose, I guess, the main two points of this, and then you can feel free to kind of peruse around it.
Well, you're
the
leading
main
it,
question,
so.
Sorry, yeah, I know my voice is gonna go out in a minute. The main question I think that he really poses is kind of what is America's race problem? So on that note, my kind of takeaway, this is very simplistic, but where I thought he might have been coming from was really this question of kind of is R, and I guess I'm using R in terms of Americans, so sorry if it's super inclusive, but that's what the chapter was really geared towards. Is our fear of racism making racism worse, I guess? What is the role of fear in racism historically in our country? And then I would like to extrapolate that into what's the role of fear in our relation to money and finance and our financial system, and how race, right, is obviously embedded within that. So yeah, that's the summary of this page. Also, I mean, if this helps get he starts out with a quote that's kind of I don't know who this quote was by, but it was does our optimism, something about kind of our optimism veiling all these negatives that are underneath, when it comes to what's really going on in society. And that made me think about the optimism theme in the last two books that we read. So yeah, I don't know. Does anyone have any thoughts on sort of optimism in America and fear in America, and how those might relate with race? And I know his points were really challenging, and I don't agree with all of them. There were some things that I thought were interesting. So yeah, I'm kind of just interested to hear what people thought. And if you don't, it's a really dense, it's an intense chapter. So just, it's okay if no one has.
Yeah, about the optimism bit, I have, so to me, as somebody who's moved to the US not recently, but hasn't always lived in the US, that to me is I see that as almost a defining feature of what it means to be American. The optimism in most Americans is just very noticeable. Everything is viewed a problem that can be fixed,
Yeah.
as opposed to even in India, some things you just take as a given,
Mhm.
right? This is how things are. This is how some people are. This is how, this group is. And you just take it at that, you don't try to challenge it. I think, I don't know if it's American or just maybe more broadly Western, there's this mindset that, whatever's not working for you can be fixed. It's a problem.
Yeah.
That's not in stone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. I just
So,
gonna
Jack,
say,
you're saying it's mainly just American, okay?
yeah, I think so. Yeah. Well, look, it's not that it's negative here or whatever, but I dissociate, like, I'd get that talking to a lot of Americans as well. Like, you guys, not to be stereotypical or anything, but yeah, everything can be solved, and it's real can-do attitude, which is very attractive. Is the wrong word, but very, like, it's feel good energy. Like, I don't think that's the same. Like, Joseph lives in Germany. What do you think, Joseph? Do you think that's European as well, or what?
I've been living here for not so long time, so I cannot really give an answer to that. But no, I don't think so. I think it's more American. You can find that here, but the American way of life, it's embedded in the American way of life to solve the problem, to find a way around it. To know what I mean?
Yeah. I think the same. Like, it's not that you can find that here as well, but it's like, I think I'd be quite like that, but a lot of people aren't like that. Whereas it seems that nearly most American people I speak to do seem to be like that. So, which is good.
Did we want to
Yeah. So,
stay on that, or no one wants to touch that?
Yeah, I know. Well, I guess as the last piece of that it made me think about a lot was I kind of just started to make a list on that slide of like some books that I thought might be good tangents from this conversation, especially ones that are actually like written by Black individuals. I think most of the ones on that list are Black men, but like, let's keep on adding. And maybe in the future, like if we want to, I'd love to really get more into the Bitcoin side of this in terms of finance and race, even if it is from that American lens. I just think it would be great to like dig into one of those. It doesn't have to be something on this list, but I just want to put that out there because it's always good to kind of balance, right? Like piece we've done that so far with the pieces that we read, and I enjoy doing that. So
Yeah,
could be
that
one way.
reminds me of the guy who wrote From Bars to Bitcoin. Have y'all seen him on Twitter? I can't remember his name now. He was on
I've seen
show.
something about that.
I listened to a podcast with him, and he was just like, prior to Bitcoin, the everything was just rigged against me because I'm Black, because I've been to prison. And he was just determined to find something that would take him out of that cycle, I guess. And then Bitcoin was his answer. But oh my gosh, I can tell you his name any other time. But anyway.
Justin Redrick?
Is that his name? Oh yeah, Bitcoin Vegan. I don't know his name. I just know his Twitter handle.
Okay.
Bitcoin vegan. Nice.
Because
We'll
I
check him
think he runs a catering business and it's vegan food. But anyway.
And I don't know if it was probably in this section. He talks about, what does he call it? Generalized something versus individualized something, right?
In this essay.
In the essays, making decisions based on generalized statistics in the absence of any other knowledge.
Data, like there's no data,
In the absence of data, you make decisions based on generalizations. But if you have specific information, you disregard generalized statistics.
these essays, and again, I don't mean to like contradict I think he brings up some really interesting points, but he doesn't really use a lot of statistics in his essay. Like he uses a lot of quotes, tons and tons of quotes.
He does. Didn't he say people get mad at statistics? They say you don't have a true point if you're using statistics or something like that. I don't know. I'll have to find it.
I just think, you see, what comes to mind with this, and again, you always have to be careful to talk about this kind of stuff. But like, say over here now, like we have a thing like in Dublin and stuff, you know, there's always been like these gang wars for drugs. Like, you know, drugs are becoming quite big here in general, like kind of gangs, stuff like that. No, I don't mean like the kind of thing like The Wire, that kind of thing. I mean more like it's just a lot of kind of drug culture with a lot of people, like hard drugs, like what I mean. So you'd see around Dublin in the nights, lots of kind of heroin problems, those kind of things. And it's being fueled by these kind of criminal drug gangs or whatever. But like none of them are, for the most part, black, like, or it's not race driven. It's just the way it is here. It's kind of, you know, it's the same ethnicity. Again, trying to be careful what I'm saying, but it's white people, like, whereas I feel like if that was in America, it would be like if he was, I was thinking about this when he was talking about the Georgian thing, it would be fit into some racial box where it's maybe it's just, and obviously it's not just this, but maybe on some level it's more of a correlation than a causation. And like over here, well, there actually is, maybe there is some kind of racial problem starting to develop slowly over here. Maybe it's not obvious yet, but there's always been this problem in the past 20 years of like drug gangs among normal Irish people. And it's not that there's a race divide causing it, and like this criminality developing. Yeah, it's kind of, yeah. Does that make sense what I'm trying to get at there?
Yeah, I think it depends on where you are. Because I don't think it's the drug problem. I don't think it's race necessarily. But I live in Denver, so I think it's predominantly white. And if I go downtown, the only drug addict, homeless people I see are pretty much white. So I don't know if people link race to it.
Well, I suppose I'm not talking specifically about drugs. I'm talking about more like the whole criminal cult, like the kind of people that are rough or what. It's very difficult to
I
look at
see,
stuff.
yeah.
But it's like people kind of
Choose the rough
involved
life.
in people involved in crime here generally aren't black, let's say. And there are black people here now. It's changing, but yeah, look, maybe leave that.
And there's just so many layers to this whole thing, right? So in the US, for example, I generally think America, outside of race and all that, it's got a problem with violence, you know? I mean, there's all these rules that we take as a given, that don't step out after dark, don't go into these neighborhoods. You know, there's places around where I live that I wouldn't venture into. I don't go out I'm a runner. I don't go out for a run after 5 p.m. You know, which for the most part doesn't exist in other parts of the world. You know,
I read that, I was shocked. That's just what I'm used to.
Well, it exists here as well, like. But then he's democracy.
Does it do you have that in Europe? Because I always.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, Dublin is very bad now for that kind of thing. Yeah.
So, for example, in India, right, generally a poor place. Now, it's got its problems. For example, not the safest place in the world for women, for example. But, you know, if I'm from New Delhi, I could I'm originally from New Delhi. I could step out without, at any time of the day, without worrying about whether something will happen to me or not. That threat of physical violence just isn't there, even though it's a much, much, much poorer place. Fabian, how about, does that hold true in Vietnam as well? It's not an affluent place, but
he described it pretty nail on the head about how women can walk around at night, middle of the night, and the worry isn't going to be someone attacking them or a male attacking them. It's like something else. Like, I don't know. I gotta get, some lettuce and meat for tomorrow or something, like it's not being attacked. And when he was talking, and I was actually looking for that, I'm looking for it now, looking for that quote, because it was so accurate in Southeast Asia, at least in Vietnam. Like, there is no danger. I've never felt safer anywhere else than in Vietnam. And I joke in the US when like my family was like, when are you gonna come back to visit? When are you gonna come back to visit? And I'm like, I don't want to die. Like, I don't want to go back to the US and die. Like there's, there's school shootings every week. There's mall shootings every week that maybe not anymore, but I remember like for a good chunk of the year last year, it was like every week there was some type of shooting, and it's like, man, that's crazy. And
yeah, there was a period of time here in Denver where someone was going around with a machete, and I'm just like, it was 3 weeks in a row. People were just, I would see these alerts on my phone and I'm like, okay, I'm not going anywhere.
Like,
so, yeah.
Go ahead, Stephanie.
Wild thought. I'm wondering if, I'm not trying to phrase this as like, is the media to blame? I am not, that's like not my angle, but I'm curious, like, America does, like, it's sort of like this cycle, like this author was talking about in one of the earlier chapters with politics, where we get incited. It's like America is just so easily incited, like easily angered. And I wonder with our propensity towards violence, if like there's sort of that feedback loop exists there as well with our media lens and our, like, it's just, we hype up this anger and it like almost becomes worse and internalized in people.
Yeah, that's like the point. They were saying, whatever, gosh, now I'm going to butcher it, but whatever we fight against, we feed, and it only gets worse. The war on drugs, the war on, I don't know, racism, the war on poverty, it gets worse because we're focused at it with such anger. I don't know.
I'm gonna share the quote. This is my notes. There's no part of Singapore. Is there anything cool? There's no part of Singapore, right? Hong Kong, women. Sorry, there's no part of Singapore, Hong Kong, Taipei, Shanghai, or very many other Eastern Asian cities where it is impossible to wander safely late at night. Women, whether young or old, are on their own or with small children, can be comfortably oblivious to the details of space and time, at least insofar as the threat of assault is concerned. Whilst this might not be quite sufficient to define a civilized society, it comes extremely close. And when like that description like is just so true, it just rings so true where I am.
I can't even imagine. That's awesome.
And that's remarkable, I mean, and this against the backdrop of the fact that the US is the richest country in the world, the richest country ever to have existed in the world, right? And it's, and just there's this expectation of violence. Don't go out at night, don't go here or there. And people think of it as normal, and it's not normal, especially if you've come here from somewhere else. That, if it's a rich country, that should be a hallmark of being civilized. Why can't you step out of your house at night? And everybody thinks that is normal. Most people don't even think about it. It's just something that's there in their DNA.
Or
And it's
or
just
the bad areas, right? Like knowing there's bad areas in your city. Every city has a bad area. That shouldn't be
Yes.
normal, right? That shouldn't be a thing. And then the donut cities, that was the first time I've heard that term. And I think that was just pretty much saying suburbia, right? It was just white flight to suburbia was really what that was. And donut cities. And I've never heard that term before, but yeah, that was, yeah, I forgot what his case was, but it was that, again, yeah, this shouldn't be normal, and we've normalized these things.
He was like, we pretend that it doesn't even exist, but then it's visible from outer space, or whatever that quote was.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really, and I took that as, I've obviously learned about like redlining and like the history of like in real estate, what happened in America and what made like inner cities occur. But he phrases it in a very different way, where you're kind of just like, it's less of, it's a very strange reality to live in when you start to think
There's
about
no,
it, you know?
he didn't put statistics to it, right? It was like, this is
He didn't
what it
even
is.
mention the name. Yeah, he didn't even like talk about historically, like this is when this happened, or he comes at it from a very casual angle, but it's like, it's true. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so yeah, agreeing with all what you guys are saying basically. And so the backdrop is a country that's, for whatever reason, there's this subculture, not even subculture, there's violence, it's a violent country. And then you have a group that's been traditionally marginalized, kept out of the systems of wealth creation for generations. And isn't it obvious that that group's going to statistically be more violent in a country that's anyway violent, right? So he mixes up all these things, and I don't know, I don't know if what he's saying stands up to scrutiny. So for example, recently, the running route that I used to take, I've completely changed that, because over the last year or 2 years, it's visibly deteriorated. You see people shoot things up, and yes, a few weeks back, there was this guy who was just roaming around naked, without a care in the world on the streets. Now, and they were white people basically. So, and that's just poverty. That's got nothing to do with race, right? And the experience that I have stepping out and encountering all this, would it change if the race had been different? I don't know. Maybe it would have, maybe it wouldn't. I don't think it would have.
That's what I was trying to say about Ireland there. The same kind of point with just what I was making with the drug gangs and stuff. Like, it's just the poverty is in, they're white. It's nothing to do with race. But maybe it's not that simple at the same time. I don't know.
The other thing about all this conversation about race in that book is it just talks about blacks and whites. There's other people in the world as well. Right? What about me? But,
But I think he was coming at it at the political lens in the US, right? I mean, those are the two teams, right? Essentially that we're watching it play out. So, yeah. Can you guys see Jack's slide?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So look, that's just talking points anyway. That's a quote from him there about basically his politics. He's saying it's shifting left the whole time, which I kind of agree with that. But anyway, I'll read it out. So the right has no unity, actual or perspective, and thus has no definition central to that left. It's for this reason that political dialectics ratchets only one direction, predictably progressively towards state expansion and an increasingly coercive, substantial egalitarian ideal. The right moves to the center moves to the left. So he's saying that that's the nature of the system. Kind of like he's saying that the left are unified on all things progressive. Anyway, progressive, just unified, and that's kind of the position. Whereas on the right's home to a lot of different groups, from like extreme right ethno-nationalist groups, and then also people like Ron Paul would say they're part of the right, which obviously are worlds apart. And then for this reason, it's in the PowerPoint, so therefore conservatism is incapable of working dialectics, which quote from him, due to its nature of non-unity, it will always lose out to the left, or always unified in the more progressive thing. Examples might be the ever-expanding welfare state, tax system, MMT becoming ever more pervasive with corruption of economics, or even things like, now, I'm not an expert in this because I'm not American, but I put it in for a talking point to you guys. Affirmative action progressing into positive discrimination. But we do see that here as well, actually. Like there's certain jobs now for big organizations, particularly media organizations, that you can actually only get if you're certain, like white people won't be able to get those jobs, like by definition on the job description. So it's positive discrimination towards the people that group, but it's actually racism towards.
So positive discrimination means what exactly? Is that?
It's the opposite of like, to say, opposite of being, so it's basically treating your racial, so in terms of racism, it would be that because you're black, that's a good thing for getting the job. It's not.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
The opposite. I thought a lot of his points were pretty, I don't know, like they maybe not on the money or whatever, but like they do make sense. I definitely agree with him about like the trend towards the left. And it's not like I'm a diehard, you know, I'm not massively conservative or anything, but I think that can kind of be seen just with the way like the state is becoming more and more powerful. I don't know what you guys think.
I think the interesting term that he used was asymmetrical. Like it's asymmetrical in that the left is always has an out to win, where the right is kind of stuck and it's a lose-lose. But I don't have the reasons to back up why I just stated that. But
I kind of agree with that. I always feel like the right is just on defense, and they never like outwardly stand for something. I don't know, they do, but they don't go out. I don't know how to say it either, but where the left is always, I'm missing a word, advocating for what they believe in. The right does not advocate and, I don't know, try to educate anybody on why. They are just like always on defense. I don't know how to say it.
He's kind of saying, I think it's because the right, yeah, that makes sense, but the right doesn't actually know itself because it's so fragmented. Whereas whenever there's like any kind of a progressive, so say like MMT, it's like 100%. Now, I don't follow it the way you guys might, but like my understanding would be like 100% Democrats would vote for like MMT, and then maybe like 40% Republicans might, and then the other 60% are kind of these like libertarian, you know, kind of watch the budget kind of people. And because of that nature, it's kind of impossible for like the balance of democracy to work. Like people say it does, where it swings a bit left and then it swings back more right. He's kind of saying, well, that may happen over the long term. It's constantly swinging more left the whole time under our current system, like global Western democracy.
Yeah.
Jack, what's MMD?
Modern monetary theory, just, printed money. Yeah, just basically printed money, that kind of thing. Yeah. Oh yeah. I just put this in. Yeah. Just discuss. Like he's saying that for a lot of the reasons we talked about just there, and obviously previous parts yesterday, he's saying about secession in the US, like different states breaking away, and he's saying that liberty has no future in the Anglophone world, which I presume means English-speaking world. Outside the prospect of secession, the coming crack up is the only way out. I don't know really what to think of that.
Yeah, what does he mean by that? Coming crack up. I remember I remember the feeling of the right can break apart and crack up, and they're okay with that. They're cool with like, I'm broken into this and I'm cool and you could be that and you can do that. And I'm fine cracking each other and breaking and having our own little sex. Whereas progressives are like, no, we all gotta be together into the same boat, right? We all have to accept and tolerate everyone. And the people on the right that could fragment themselves are tolerant of each other's intolerance.
Yeah.
Right?
Which in turn is intolerable.
Yeah.
It's also just, I think, made more profound here because we're made up of states. So it's a little bit like, it's a very visual and very, yeah, I don't really know another way to describe it, but like we're literally geographically and visually like represented in blue and red and like represented by like what side we are. So while I disagree with him. I think that like at a certain point there might be a reckoning. Like at a certain point there's going to be chaos when there's division like this. But I think it's like very weird here because it's sort of this like the division becomes geographical like division. It's odd. I think I think it could get, it's not like it's gonna just all of a sudden plateau. Like the anger is gonna kind of build.
It's gonna get worse before it gets better.
I feel, but sorry.
Yeah. Don't be.
So this whole, exit talk is a little, I don't know, I find it a little jarring. I mean, exit to what? And who's going to exit? Right? People who talk, who are at the forefront of this whole exiting thing are people like Peter Thiel and his seasteading, right? He wanted to do that, right? Form a community in the middle of the ocean in some international waters, right?
I had no idea. No, can you talk about that? Does anyone know what Amir's talking about?
Wait, let me look this video up.
Surely, if anyone can do it, surely he could do it. He's like,
yeah, yeah. That's the funny part. Yeah.
He starts with the premise that you have these cruise ships, right, which have thousands of people on board. They're in the ocean, and they can sustain themselves. So let's convert that to a permanent way of living. We'll be in international waters. Nobody's rules apply to us. And, the term that's used is seasteading. And he was big into it. I think he started building something as well, and take all his billionaire buddies and live on this thing. And I don't know. And
sounds
then
like an Ayn Rand novel.
Yeah, I mean, So that I don't see what problem this solves. A group of the very wealthy go create their own lives, and they live in a bubble. They have nothing to do with anyone else. And then what do the rest of us do? You know what I'm saying? It's
yeah. Well, maybe he's kind of saying exit will collapse the whole thing. I didn't really understand what he kept saying exit. Like, did he literally mean leave? Is that what he meant when he kept saying that throughout the thing?
That's basically what that's how I understand it. Work towards being able to, let me just send you guys this video. 1 second. Let me look this up. There's that famous Balaji Srinivasan thing about starting your own country, right? That somebody converted to a video. And he talks about some of all this, just own contiguous property, and I don't fully understand it. Just bear with me. I'll look it up. I'll send it to you guys.
The thing is that these kind of things, do they not kind of already exist? Like Cayman Islands, like the British Virgin Islands, all those places, aren't they kind of what they're looking for already? But why don't they just go there?
Good point. Like Puerto Rico, kind of just to get out of the tax obligations.
I don't really think there's any real, like, there's definitely no problem. Like, if this guy's so concerned about it, why doesn't he just go there? Like, I don't think there's, I could be wrong, but I don't think there's any concerns or any like issues with race, whatever problems there. Now, obviously, that's not the solution for wider society, so maybe that's what he's saying, but like, yeah, maybe he is there, I don't know.
Oh, then there's a whole YouTube channel, it seems, on seasteading.
Of course there is.
I don't know what this has, but
I am
I'll put the
interested,
link in here.
to be honest.
I know what you're doing tonight.
And then there are, adjacent movements to this whole concept of, like, during the Trump years, there was this whole MGTOW thing. Do you guys hear about that at all, or are you familiar with the term?
Nick,
Heard
what?
before.
MGTOW, men going their own way. Women are going where? And what do you plan to do there? It doesn't make any sense. Right?
That stuff is that stuff is just, oh my god. It's like, for anyone that doesn't know, it's like all these guys who've kind of been burned by women somehow, and they just all collecting together to say that like they're never going near women again, and they all kind of share these stories, and it's really, I'm sure there's Reddit for it. If it's not been banned, maybe it's been banned, but
that's probably been banned.
It's real cringe. Like, you'd be reading it. Yeah.
And sorry, go ahead.
It's like everything. There's a little bit of truth in it. They just take it and they just run like 1,000 miles off the wrong direction, and then it's absurd. Have a look at it if it's still there.
The whole gender thing is a totally different rabbit hole. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, this is something else again. This is another little, you wouldn't really know it's there, and then you discover it, and it's actually quite a big thing.
That's funny.
MGTOW. I haven't heard that in a while.
And
It's a form of victimhood. It's a form of victimhood, I think.
It's a form of what?
Victimhood.
Oh yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah.
And every group's, everybody's offended by someone else, and the solution is to exit completely. How can that work? I don't know. You got to resolve your differences, live together.
So, again, a lot of this ties in again with like the sovereign individual. We definitely need to read that at some stage. Like, it's very I think you'd like it a lot of me, or it deals with a lot of these things, and it does make good arguments for a lot of it. it's stimulating, although it's one of these books that could have been much less, it's long. It doesn't have to be as long as it is. Like,
and that's a pretty old book, isn't it? It's not new, something that came up after Bitcoin. I think it was written in the 90s or something.
90s, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll read it at some point. Maybe you should do it as part of the book club.
I think we'll definitely get to it. It's part of the like holy trinity of Bitcoin books, right? It's like it's always up there. So I don't know. I think I flipped through it, and there were some parts that were like I don't know, man. But I didn't read it in full, so I gotta.
And I feel like your I flipped through it is like you read the whole thing. It just is like nothing.
Yeah. I did one read through. I flipped through it. Yeah. Now we'll put it to a vote, maybe. All right. Sorry. Let me go ahead and. Cool. All right, Amiyu.
Just 1 second. I think somebody's video's on. Is that me or someone else?
Can you say that again?
I think somebody's video, or something's playing in the background. That could be me. Is it?
I don't hear anything.
I think it's you.
Me neither.
It's probably me then. And is that? How do I turn this damn thing off?
Take your time.
Sorry, I don't know what's going on. Oh yeah, that is my video. Found it. God. Yeah. Okay, so what slide are we on? I created this one. I just put, it's just text from the chapter itself. So let's just go one by one. So modernity, he says, two opposing forces. I think we were talking about this in the beginning. There's this technology, industrialization that's improving lives for everybody. And that really has nothing to do with this other countercurrent of equality / democracies and so on. Those are two independent things which work at cross purposes. Now, so what do you guys feel about that? Do you agree with that? I think that's the point he's making. Because, our way of thinking is, democracy is achieving all these things for humanity. And he says, no, it's not. They're at cross purposes. So that's just from the book, not my view necessarily. I haven't even processed it fully.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like they are two different things, but it's not, maybe not cross purposes. Like the techno stuff could obviously be stopped by democracy, but it's kind of happening anyway, as is happening maybe in China, those places. Like Singapore is happening as well anyway. But yeah. I'm not sure. Yeah. Yeah. Look, we kind of spoke about it already. It's the same kind of thing. Like.
Yeah, we spoke about this. You're right.
Yeah, but it's kind of like I was gonna say I'm not sure is it as big a thing as he's making it out to be. Like he's kind of acting like democracy stopping. Like a lot of our lives would be a lot better without democracy, but our lives could be a whole lot worse as well. Like, yeah, look, I don't know.
Okay, and then he goes on to say modernity is ethno-geographic. Now, I'm not sure what that means. And there was a point last night where I actually understood it, but I can't recollect what it means right now.
I can relate to that.
So what is
Yeah, when I read it, I'm like, oh, okay, I get what he's saying. And now we're talking about it. I'm just like, I have no idea.
So
Sorry,
modernity is let me pull up the essay. Keep talking. I'm looking for.
Yeah.
This was for E.
This is kind of the conclusion anyway, isn't it? So like we'll have touched on these points.
Yeah, I think the point he tries to make is, and I'm literally reading from the piece. He talks about modernity's inherent trend to degenerate and to self-cancel. And that I think we can sort of relate to, right? With cancel culture. There is things you can't express, phrases you can't use, things you can and can't talk about. To the extent that if you do, thought crime, exactly. To the extent that you could, you say one thing that's not sanctioned by the cathedral and you could lose your job, God alone knows what could happen. So I think that's the point he's trying to make, that, modernity gets in the way of how people naturally are. This brings to mind, there was that, about a year back, there was that episode in Central Park with that woman and the dog and that guy who was taking pictures of birds. You remember that one?
Central Park, is it?
Central Park in New York.
Right.
And so there was this white woman with a dog.
Oh, yeah.
I think I remember that.
I totally remember it. Go ahead, Amiyu. Yeah.
Yeah, so do you want me to describe what actually happened, or should we just
go ahead.
about it?
Yeah, you describe. Talk about it.
So there was another guy, a black guy, who was taking pictures of birds in Central Park. And she saw him and just went, and the guy asked her to leash her dog, because that's a Central Park rule. And then she just lost her shit completely, started yelling at him and, I'll call the police. And this guy was absolutely calm. He said, go ahead, call the police. What are you going to say? He said, I'll call the police and say I'm getting attacked by a black guy. Right. And this person's sister was filming this whole thing. And then the video went viral. She lost her job. And,
well, she did that, right? She called the police and was saying...
She called the police, yeah.
Yeah.
She lied to the police that I'm getting attacked.
She lied right in front, yeah.
And the guy, turns out he's, was very, very sophisticated. He was, I think he was from Harvard and was here. I don't know if he was a professor there or not, or he went to school at Harvard, and just a very, balanced, calm, composed guy. And it was when after the dust settled, I think it was interesting what he said. It was basically, look, yes, what she did was obviously very, very racist, but after a point, just let her be. She had obviously something triggered her. She acted completely irrationally, but you can't just hold that against her for the rest of her life, right? The woman's already lost her job, And he basically said, look, I want to have nothing to do with her, but I think everybody should just leave her alone.
Yeah. Wasn't there something similar to that even? Well, kind of similar to what we're talking about with the guy from Netflix recently. Is it Dave Chappelle, is it?
Yeah.
I don't know. Honestly, I don't even know who he is, but I think he said he made some joke or something that was like maybe offensive to some LGBT community or something, and I think he's lost all his stuff because of it. Am I correct in saying that?
No, I don't think so.
I've gone crazy. And I feel like people who were the most mad probably didn't even watch it. Did any of you all watch it?
I watched it.
I didn't think it was worth ruining somebody's career. I don't know, but maybe I'm just shallow.
I think it was the contrary to what they attacking him. He was very compassionate with the person, at the end.
Just silly. That's all I can like say about half of this social stuff going on. I'm like, I don't have the energy to be mad at something like that. It's just silly. I don't care.
Yeah,
But I also can't say that. That's violence at the same time. So
Yeah. And and going back to that Central Park thing, if you watch the video of that whole episode, at least I felt, again, it was obviously a very racist sort of outburst.
Yeah.
But I almost felt bad for the woman because she loses it in a very, you can tell it's probably not how she is most of the time. Something happened. Maybe she was stressed about something else, and something happened that just triggered her. She lost her shit. And then she loses her job.
And I think it says a lot about the guy that's like, just leave her alone. Like, stop making something. You keep it alive the more that you rag on it. Just let it go and move on.
So
that took her dog away, which I didn't like. You shouldn't take anybody's dog away.
I totally, so I agree with this sentiment overall of like, look, if she learned from this, if she grew from this, right? Like, just she suffered whatever consequences happened, they happened, right? But like, it shouldn't be 10 years later and, people are still damaging her over this. I agree with that. But there's also an aspect to this where sometimes these people double down. They don't learn from it, or they don't see what was wrong in their thinking, and they either continue or just double down. And that I think is where we run into this, like Amiyu, where it's just like, well, yeah, you can move forward, but she's going to do this again, and maybe the next person won't be filming it, right? And I don't know, that's just something that comes to my mind. But again, I'm all for like, if you learn from it and if you just moved on with your life as well, like, okay, like, we shouldn't hold that against you.
Yeah, agreed. But I would go one step further and also say, even if you don't learn from it, right, then you're just an idiot. And you should not care. The rest of us shouldn't care about it regardless. Because what's it going to do? For example, this woman, apart from that one outburst, I have no reason to believe she's an evil person per se, right? Now she's lost her job. She worked in banking. No other job in America, no other bank in America is ever going to hire her. So she's lost her livelihood, right? Is that, it'll just make her bitter, and even if she wasn't racist to begin with, these things will reinforce her whatever racist tendencies she had. So it's not, by constantly hounding her, you're creating a worse situation than you had in the beginning, is what I think, and then what's her support system going to be? Her support system is going to end being people who will tell her, look, these guys are the problem. So it's going to create an even bigger echo chamber. You're just going to polarize people more and more. So by, this whole cancel culture thing, it pisses me off, because I think these are the kinds of issues that creates. It just polarizes people. You're trying to control a certain kind of behavior, but you're really encouraging it if you take a longer view of things.
Did you want to stick on this one, Amiyu, or did you want to move on to the next one? Ooh, some guy. Oh, sorry, William.
Sorry?
Did you want to move on, Amiyu?
Yeah, we can move on. So again, cut pasting. So exits, from. Oh, sorry. Did you want to talk about the 4 or 3 possible forms of exit that he's talking about?
Yeah, I let me pull it up while you go ahead and talk about it. Hey, we have a Jack, I'm sorry, what's your name? Not Jack.
Joseph.
Yes.
Sorry, William. Hey, William.
Hey guys, I go by Will, member of cohort 8. Found you through the learning channel. Seems like you're interested in what I'm interested in, so I just wanted to pop in and listen, contributed in any way I could.
All right. We're winding down a little bit on some pretty crazy experimental readings that we did, so just bear with us here, all right? And chime in at any point, by the way.
So the exit he talks about in the essay is modernity 2, which is the only one here that's actually, no, actually that's not true. It's not the only exit. Basically, you get rid of whatever's holding techno-industrialization behind, all the degenerate structures. You get rid of all that. Does anybody remember this part, or because I don't remember it too well?
No, I don't.
Oh, and he gives the example of China here, that China's on its, they don't care about equality and democracy and this and that. They're just interested in technological progress. And according to him, they're on the, whatever it is he means by modernity 2.0, China is the shining example. They're on that path. Right? Postmodernism that's doomsday scenario. That's what, according to him, the West is on course for. And, that's me. That's my commentary. It's the Ready Player One world. Mainstream society has just gone to shit. As an escape from it, you get into the metaverse, put on your VR glasses and do what you've got to do. So this is the worst possible outcome that most
highly likely.
yeah.
Looking the most realistic.
Yeah, that's what he says. It's what will happen if the cathedral wins, so to speak. And I think his outcome of choice is what he calls the Western Renaissance. That we get rid of democracy, either get rid of government completely or majorly downsize it, restore hard money, bring in Bitcoin basically. And, basically this third option is exit from the current system.
And this was I forgot, this was the proponent of like, let's make the government a business, right?
Yeah, this is where he talks about that. And I will, if I find it, that the government is basically a business that owns the country. And the government has a CEO. Does he talk about how you go about identifying the CEO or no?
No, he said that the CEO would be elected, and depending on how he runs his portion, he would be kept or fired, or it sounds like they would be elected by an electoral college. Just like another same thing, different name,
Yeah, that's what I got out of it.
Probably what he's chosen as well. That's how these kind of things generally go.
Sorry.
Okay. So I don't really have any further insights to add to this, And this is a concluding piece. This is how he sums it all up. The bionic horizon. And, so he summarizes what he's been saying in the entire essay, that, the cathedral's flushing everything down the toilet. It's all doom and gloom. And the way out of it is this technological utopia, and we completely transcend all these issues that he's spent the last pages discussing. You sort of, I think he talks about transhumanism. You inject technology into yourself, whatever, what am I trying to say? Whatever limitations your abilities have, get technology to correct for those, genetic modifications, embed yourselves with, advanced prosthetics, things like that. And basically you evolve a new species. That's not even Homo sapiens, really. You merge tech with biology.
So I'm thinking
biohacking, in other words.
I'm thinking of two
Yeah.
things. Is anyone thinking of China right now? Because that's definitely, I don't know a lot about it, but I know China's all very cool with just experimenting with DNA and kind of just moving fast and breaking things in that regard, right? And China, like, I don't want this to be well, sorry, I guess I'm bringing up China, right? So we got to bring up China. So, so yeah, just, they are, doing a lot of genetic things. We have no idea what they're doing, right? But they definitely have this superiority complex where they are trying to do that, right? I mean, and funnily enough, looking at, I'm not saying this about Nick Land, but I think he is in China right now, or he was living in China for a brief moment, for a couple of years. Not saying this is connected to the eugenics or DNA or anything, but like, it's interesting little piece of information regarding that in China. And then the other thing, does anyone want to add on to that or kind of chime in on that?
Yeah, I just feel like a lot of this stuff really isn't all that far off from what people might, well, maybe most would agree with me, but it's like I don't know that he had the most fully fleshed out like vision of what this would entail. However, I think a lot of other people have extrapolated on it in ways that are more fleshed out, and it really, when we look around and using your example, Fabian, isn't all that far off from reality relatively soon.
And the more I think about it, Elon Musk, we spoke about him a little bit earlier, but he seems to be doing all of these, right? Like that, what's that company that he runs?
Neuralink.
Yeah. Neuralink, space exploration, go colonize Mars. It seems to be an encapsulation of what this guy is describing. Exit from the system, go start your own thing on Mars. I'm building the technology for it. I'll make you transhuman. You implant all these Neuralink things all over your body.
So let me come to his defense, right? No, so he's very virtuous. And I was just talking to my friend about this. Like, if you look at his mission statements on his companies, like, he's doing the mission statements. The big thing about SpaceX is he wants to spread human consciousness. He wants to make sure humans survive. And I think we talked about this last week, on it was Albert Wagner was talking about, we don't know, there's unlimited things we can't account for, right? Like climate change, all this bad stuff that's happening. There's unlimited bad things, right? And what Elon Musk is trying to do is trying to make sure we have human survival. Like, if something happens to the earth, which a million things could happen, and things are happening now, there's an out or something in that regard. So in terms of SpaceX, it's not so much escape, it is more ensuring humans are still around. And I was talking to my friend because he mentioned the billionaires and just, there's the argument of why spend money on going to space? You should spend money on helping the earth right now, right? Like, you should put that money into the technology on earth. And And my thinking was, so he is tackling that via going into space. The technology we have right now, like GPS, internet, rehydrated food, all these things happened from NASA, right? Or government projects. And again, this touches on what Albert was talking about, the world after capital, when he was like, a lot of good things happen not from capital, not from chasing capital, right? Like these were government funded projects, or for the sake of doing something for the sake of doing it, not so much for chasing profit, right? These technologies came from that. So I was kind of telling my friend too, is like, by doing this, by going to space, we're going to find technologies on radiation, on growing things on Mars, how to grow food on Mars, how to transport people safely and grow food in zero G. That could all be applicable on Earth, right? That technology is kind of more expedited.
That's a great thought, Fabian. And if I could just jump in, extend that that value proposition that I think SpaceX is offering. It's even going beyond the technology now, right? Because that's been the narrative for the past 60 years about NASA is we invent technology in space and we bring it back to you and you can manufacture it, etc. What I think is really interesting that Elon gave a talk on about 4 years ago. He said he wants to bring the price of a ticket to Mars down to the cost of a mortgage on a house right now. And so that's setting you up as an ordinary person to have an alternative to the current economy, right? You can stay on Earth, become a worker, or you can go to Mars, right? And if you were to go to Mars, your labor can pay off your ticket and your board and food up there too, right? So he's offering a whole new exit and alternative to the ordinary person. It's no longer just some scientist will get a new piece of technology, is you have an alternative to everything else that's ever existed right now.
So I guess that does play off into the exit, Amiyu. Of leaving. And the other thing I wanted to talk about, and I talked about last time too, is Neuralink. The proposition for Neuralink, if you guys don't know, it's a computer chip. It's pretty much a computer chip in your brain. So instead of having VR sets or anything like that, it's a chip in your brain. And his reasoning for that was, computers and artificial intelligence and general artificial intelligence, they're going to learn so much. They're going to learn and improve and gain a lot of knowledge so quickly and so fast. There's no way they're going to be able to teach it to humans. The gap of understanding would be like us trying to teach a chicken arithmetic, right? That is, it's a little exaggerated, but not really, right? And so the whole reason for Neuralink, for creating this brain chip, is he's saying so we don't get left behind. So when AI does come, we can still have a means of catching up in some form or fashion. Again, kind of getting into this. I hope we didn't get too far away. I think we kind of did take a left turn on what Nick was writing about, but you know, these things are very interesting. But I don't think Nick Land was thinking about these things when he was writing that. So I don't know, thoughts?
I think that definitely goes hand in hand with a lot of what Wagner said was really getting at too, with like, we have the resources and the money, like we have the collateral to like not even correct the issues that are happening with the course of technology, and like the attention problem, but more so he's just saying like we actually have the resources to like have a new frontier on all of this and to like make like link, for better or lack of a better term, like our technological prowess with like the solutions that we want to see. So yeah, I think it's interesting. I think he would probably be on the camp that a lot of what Musk is doing is positive. But yeah, that's another book. So sorry.
Yeah, more I think about it, more it seems like Musk is achieving this guy's dream, or at least working towards it.
I'll throw in a recommendation. If any of you know H.P. Lovecraft, has a story out called "Don't Make Me Think," where he takes the concept of Neuralink and really runs with it. It has an emoji after each word. It's a little hard to read, but I think the effect actually does pay off. So if you get through it, I'd recommend it. And one other one that I haven't read because it hasn't come out yet, but I'm really excited about is James Poulos's Forever Human. I don't know if you've been seeing that. It looks like I'm going to try to get the NFT for that because I'm pretty excited about that concept as
What's
well.
what's it called? Forever Human?
Yeah, it's James Poulos. He got booted for Facebook for writing bad words in a past life. And so it's kind of interesting. He had this concept before Zuckerberg even released the idea of metaverse, but he's like, people have lived traditionally, they like to drink and socialize, and modern Silicon Valley is essentially opposed to everything that people have celebrated and brought them together and tried to create something new around that. And so he's trying to take back traditionalism, I think, is his move there.
What do you guys think of Miami? Just total off the ball.
Can you say
I
that
know
again?
there's loads of crypto companies. Well, what do you guys think of Miami? Like Florida? I know there's lots of crypto companies moving there and stuff. Just I'd be interested to hear your thoughts. Looking from the outside, it seems like that's kind of the place to be in America now. Does anyone share that sentiment or?
Kind of Florida's always been that way because I don't think they have property taxes, but I personally don't like Florida. I don't like to sweat. So I played a lot of golf down there and it's just, I'd rather not go back, but I'm going to the Bitcoin conference, so I'll let you know how it is.
It'd be just as hot as California though, wouldn't it?
It'd be very humid, like extremely humid.
It's a swamp.
Yeah.
They say Florida is a swamp. It's a swamp.
Yeah,
For
for sure.
I really like the game theory that's playing out, or what I think it's the start of the game theory, because we just had the New York mayor say, I want Bitcoin here. I'm taking my my first
3 months
in Bitcoin, right? Which I'm like, come on, man, like that's nothing, Anyway, I'm glad he's doing it. Tampa, the governor from Tampa is doing it, right? The governor from Miami's doing it. And I know Wyoming is kind of big. So slowly we're starting to see, I don't know if it's game theory yet, but it's becoming more mainstream. Right? I think Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady did a commercial with Bitcoin. It's really good to see crypto.com like sponsor sports and FTX, even though I don't agree with their products or how they're going about their products, right? I'm very happy that it's becoming more mainstream. So I'm seeing this game theory type thing. It's like I want to see it happen. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, it's so great.
I agree. Yeah.
Right, I'd say we're done, are we?
Yeah.
Yep. Good talking to everybody.
Wait, what do we what do we
That
do
was-
next week?
That was a tough reading, guys. I'm very glad we did it, and that was a challenging read, and I really hope everyone kind of I think everyone did get some new perspective or some new things to think about. Yeah. So for the next book, I kind of wanted to bring it back to Bitcoin in some way. I know we want to do fiction. We'll definitely do fiction. But I think we should this was kind of out there, so I want to kind of reel it back in a little bit, if you guys know what I mean. I was thinking the Book of Satoshi. What do you guys think about that one? Right? Well, I don't know. Jack, what do you think? Amiyu, yeah, I'm seeing yes, I'm seeing nods, so.
If you want.
Has anyone read it?
I
Yeah, has
haven't read
anyone
it, no.
read it?
I was gonna say,
It just came in the mail for me 2 days ago.
All right.
I'm enjoying it, and I've already made an insight from it.
How long is it?
It's short because I'll just grab it real quick. Hold on. Show you what it looks like.
It's like 70 parts, so they're by topic. So it's like Satoshi talking about the 51% attack, Satoshi talking about deflation, right? So it's broken into 70 parts. Go ahead, Will. You're on mute.
You're muted.
To shut off the.
That looks
blur.
big. Hold on.
It looks big, right? But
Let's
it's
see that. Okay.
it's like a page chapter, right? It's a page chapter.
Yeah.
And essentially it has like an email. This is like an email from Satoshi. And then you're like, okay, what does this email means? Well, he gives you a context of why did he write this email. So I think it's one of those books where you don't have to read it front to back. You can say 34 on the Bitcoin limit and profitability of nodes. Okay. 17, more on transaction pools, broadcast and coding details. Chapter 13, Byzantine general problem. Like, I don't think you have to go through all 71 chapters to get something out of it. You can pick and choose around it.
So what if we divide the book into 3? Maybe we'll read like 20, 25 of them. Maybe everyone think of something interesting, or maybe like if it's the Byzantine problem, maybe like have supplemental material, what do you guys think?
Yeah.
Okay, let me propose breaking it up into 3 sections, and then I could make materials and curate, and then we can go over different parts of what Satoshi was talking about. Does that sound okay?
Yep, I'm ordering it right now.
Yes. Maybe each
Yeah, so
person
we're doing
gets a
one-
random bonus one and no one else. What do you mean by that, Stephanie?
You're
I
muted.
think you're on mute too.
Sorry, no, I was telling, I'm just sorry. I was wondering if like we can just pick whatever amount of chapters we want to read as a group. And then like, since there are so many, we could just pick one, like each person just randomly picks one number that isn't part of that collective that we're all reading, and then like explains it to the group as like a fun bonus.
Okay.
I don't know, I'm just trying to like,
Yeah, switch it up. Okay. So here, how about this? Let's break it up into 3, and then for each section, I'll leave maybe 4 or 5 up for grabs, or should I assign them to people? I'll assign them. Let me assign them. Steph, how do you feel about that?
Wait, can you repeat that one more time?
So I will, we'll do the first 20 chapters, but maybe I'll leave we'll do 15. We'll read 15 together, and then the last 5 I'll assign to everyone in the group, and then they'll just talk about it or what they thought was interesting and maybe some additional information. How does that sound? So that way we all go through it, and then each person kind of shows something. Is that all right? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. So I'll work out the logistics and send it tomorrow. But everyone can just start reading, I think, the first 20 for sure. So.
Okay.
Awesome.
Sounds good.
All right, guys. Well, have a good day or a good evening. And Amiyu, thank you for showing that. I think that was a really awesome curveball to throw into what we're doing. So you know what I mean. You know what I mean. So yeah, it was good. All right, guys.
Y'all.
Take care.
Bye.
Take care.